Hello and welcome to part 3 of this course, and this is chapter 11. We're going to start with chapter 11. If this is your first video in this series, I want to just encourage you to start with the first video. The first video isn't as good as this, and really this is the first series that I'm making on YouTube or video series I'm making on any platform you're watching this. If this is on Substack or anywhere else on my personal website, you're welcome. The point is that it might be better for you to just start with part 1 when I started and I explained what I'm doing, reading a book to you, and all the other things involved. So start there. Otherwise, if you want to continue from here, looking at group habits, you're welcome to do so. So I already have begun annotating some parts, and that's because I wanted to see how long this part is going to take. But really, part 3 has a lot more content than part 2 and part 1. So we're going to spend more time in these chapters, and that means the videos are going to be longer. So if you want to watch the video at a faster speed, if my speech speed isn't fast enough or I'm making too many slows, bear with me. But you can always watch the video at either 1.2x, 1.5x, or 2x the speed. So if you do not know how I mean or what I'm referring to, um, if you click on the setting icon on this video or on any video at all on YouTube that you're watching, or just about any platform, the setting icon will have an option for speed. So if you click on speed, and then you will find the option to increase the speed by 1.2x or by 1.5x or by 2x, or on YouTube now I think you can increase the speed to even 4x. There's no way you're going to watch something like this at 4x and pick anything. You can watch it at 2x if your ears are like very good. You can pick things at rates faster than a second. But for people like myself, whenever I'm watching a video tutorial, an educational video, the highest I go is 1.5. I've only done 2x for rare cases where the speech was so slow and I needed to watch it to finish up watching that course or learning that thing in a shorter space of time. So feel free to play with the speed that suits you. So group habits begins here. So it says in the introduction to group habits, no matter how original and innovative ideas might be, and no matter how efficient and productive your own habits might be, you won't be able to build a truly exceptional organization alone. So virtual assistants like myself, this is a point we need to take note. When we're working with a CEO who has a lean team, the point of the matter is going to rely on his team a lot. So if there's a small team of about 10 employees, including the CEO and including yourself as the virtual assistant or executive assistant, what that means fundamentally is that you are assisting the CEO to manage everybody else on the team. And sometimes the CEO is going to rely on you to take charge of communication with the rest of the team. And if you were hired as a virtual assistant with experience, there's going to be an increasing amount of trust and ownership expected of you. So you're not only catering to your own individual habits and your CEO's individual habits, but you're catering to or addressing habits within the group, the entire group. So it's a huge responsibility when you're working with small teams and with CEOs or just starting a business. So I like the fact where I'm working in startup environments because you get to build relationships, and relationships are important. If you've heard me say in previous videos that I do not like the overemphasis in our culture, this Nigerian culture, on relationships over work. Do not get me wrong. It doesn't mean I do not prioritize relationships. What it simply means is that there are times when relationships, um, they're not even like times when there are relationships are ultimately important. Okay, but you cannot prioritize relationship over merit or relationships over work. It should be on the same level, or maybe relationships should only be slightly higher than the demand for excellent work. But I've also seen organizations where relationships are like bottom zero, but then people are also consumed by the amazing work that they do. And because they all have the same mindset towards doing great work, that is the basis of their relationship. So the relationship dynamics are different. So it depends on the organization where you're at. The point of the matter is relationships, meritocracy, everything is going to show up in group habits. And that's what you want to be watching out for. So that's that. Let's now go into chapter 11, decision making, writing versus talking. The first point he makes is that when two people are discussing an issue, the need to be efficient is important. When a team is discussing an issue, the need to be efficient is paramount because each inefficient minute is multiplied by the number of people in the discussion. So look at now, I don't know how long this chapter of the video is going to take me. But let's say that I was teaching this in a physical class or in a remote class webinar with 100 participants. If I take this class pretty well for that 100 participants, it's going to mean that they're all going to have questions about this chapter. And so if we do not optimize our time, it's going to mean that for each 100 participants, we're going to have like questions because the class, they didn't understand something that I should have made pretty clear. So if that is the case and each person has a question to address in that class, that would mean 100 more minutes added to the original time that I spent going through the course content. So that's why he says the need to be efficient is important. If you want the most effective and efficient decision-making process, require that anyone who wants to discuss an issue write it up along with the desired solution ahead of time. Okay, so he says you can do this in two ways. The hard way, write an extraordinary thorough analysis from the get-go. And then the easy way, write a draft, circulate it to the meeting participants before the meeting, and invite comments and questions. Then write out responses to all of these comments and questions prior to the meeting. Now, he gives an example and he says, Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon, is famous for using this written method. This is the second method, or it's actually both methods because both of them, whether the hard way or the easy way, involves writing. But he says that Jeff Bezos is famous for using the writing method. So I think he's referring to this case, the second method, where he says he requires that anyone who wants to bring up an issue or proposal must write up the item fully prior to the decision meeting, with someone else writing up a counter proposal if necessary. Okay, why? It says the meeting is then spent, or how does it work? The meeting is then spent reading the write-ups. Once the decision-making team has read them all, a decision is made. If consensus is not reached, an appointed decision maker makes the call. If there are still open questions, then the decision maker assigns one or more people to research and, of course, write the needed follow-up. At the end of the next meeting, the decision is made. What this does for the organization is that it prevents wasting time or delaying decisions that need to be made that can drive the business forward. So in the first meeting or by the first meeting, everyone has seen the write-up or the proposal. So everyone has had a chance to read it and then make comments. So by the time you get to the meeting, it's just, okay, what's the decision we need to make here? Let's look through the proposed decision one more time. And then there is an opportunity for people to speak in that meeting about one or two things that they may have left out from the writing. Okay, so this method, though time consuming for the sponsor, yields extraordinary thoughtful decisions in a very short amount of time. The extra effort and work by one person creates a net savings in time and energy across the whole group. Imposing this process on a group is daunting. Here is a way to ease a group into it. So it says the first thing you need to do is to reserve the first 15 minutes of the meeting for all participants to write out their updates and issues. Then use another 10 minutes of the meeting for all participants to read each other's updates and issues, then discuss and decide. Use this method for 2 to 3 meetings. Then, second way to do it, require that all participants write their updates and issues prior to the meeting. Do not allow people to bring an issue that they have not already written up. Use the first 10 minutes of the meeting for all participants to read each other's updates and issues. Use this method for 1 to 2 meetings. Then require that all participants write their updates and issues by a certain time prior to the meeting. For example, 6 p.m. in the evening before. 6 p.m. the evening before. So that means if you're going to have that meeting by tomorrow or the next day, you want to make sure you give a deadline of something like today. Okay. So require that all participants read and comment on each other's updates and issues prior to the meeting. So it could be the day before. Make sure there's a deadline before the meeting, and that deadline is going to help people make the necessary comments and contributions to the document. People prove that they have read the docs by having their comments in the docs themselves. So there are different docs that allow this collaborative feature, but Google Docs essentially, and I think Microsoft, the new Microsoft Word now allows a similar collaborative sharing. So do not allow people to make comments in the meeting if they haven't already commented on the docs before. Writing is a very effective way, like to just clear your thoughts. The other reason I wanted to use this book instead of creating a course from scratch is because if I wanted to create a course from scratch, I'm going to have to write the content and to write the script, because sometimes ad-libbing isn't very effective, especially if you're starting out with a video series like this that you haven't done before for the YouTube platform or any other platform. I'm used to public speaking. I'm used to teaching. I've been a teacher for many years, but even up till now, I still make slurs in my speech. I still get unnecessary pauses sometimes in my speech because there are nerves and emotions involved. It may not be because you are timid. It may not be because you have something in a bit in your speech. It could just be the emotion involved and also your processing of that thought at the moment. You might find something you want to clarify, or you might have something that you do not have, that you do not understand in that content, as would be the case in this kind of content. Because again, I'm also reading this book with you for the first time. And that's another reason why I wanted to use this book. I've also explained previously that the reason I'm using this book instead of writing a course differently and using PDFs or using any other thing for my slide presentation is because this is a seminal work. And so there's no point duplicating a seminal work like this. I consider it a seminal work. So we might as well just read the content and then I'll share my thoughts on the content. And I know while I'm sharing my thoughts on the content and you're watching, you also have your thoughts, and that's going to reinforce it for you because you're reading alongside me, you're listening to me, and your brain is also processing and saying, oh, 1 or 2 things at each point that you find interesting or that catches your attention. So I think it reinforces a lot of things for you. But the point is, it all begins with writing. So you want to take the same mindset and have the team discuss things in writing, like make their contributions, make their comments into the document before you get into the meeting where you discuss and then take a decision. So this will make your meetings much more efficient and ensure that meeting time is spent effectively. That's what he says. So getting by So one of the core challenges in leadership is how to get your team to buy into a decision. It's often easy to make a decision, but it can be much harder to get your team to invest emotionally in that decision. From Alex McCall of Clearbit. It is important for your team to be invested in a decision, as otherwise their execution will be half-hearted. So I think there's a quote around someone saying the best way to get people to do things is to make them feel like that is what they want to do. So um, what that means simply is if you um, if you can make people feel that the thing you want them to do is one that they have decided for themselves. Because usually when people make decisions for themselves, whether it's a good or bad decision, they enjoy it because they took that decision, they were fully aware and they knew that's what they wanted. So they're most likely to follow through that way. So if you want to get buy-in, you want to give people the feeling that they were part of that decision making process. Okay, so it says there are no free lunches anywhere, or there are no free lunches here, unfortunately. The method that creates the most buying also takes the most time. So essentially, what he said here is if you want to get buying, though, the problem is going to be that you're going to spend more time. There's going to be latency in the process. That is, there'll be delay because you're trying to convince people, you're trying to inform people, and you're trying to work with other people. But if you decide to make the decision yourself, you're simply saying as the CEO, hey team, I want you guys to jump on this. They don't have a choice. They're going to do it immediately and do it before your deadline. Okay. The problem is if it's a major decision, and you don't have buying, they might get it done before time, but they wouldn't do it as well as if they felt they had buying in the process. But what that causes is that you're going to have to spend more time in the process. So he then says, for this dilemma or for this quandary, but I think dilemma is because it's like two options. Do you just make the decision and do it at speed, or have your team do it at speed, or do you share with them and get the most buying? But while getting the most buying, you're going to waste the most time. So it says there are two methods. The first method is the manager makes the decision, announces it to the team, and answers the questions. So you make the decision, announce it to the team, and when you announce it to the team, if they have clarifying questions, they ask you and you explain. Says the advantage of this is that it takes little time, okay? But the problem is that it creates very little buy-in for the team and gets no benefit from their collective knowledge and expertise. It is Steve Jobs who said that you do not hire a smart person and tell them what to do. You hire a smart person and they will tell you what to do. So you might be the CEO, but don't get carried away by the power that you have and the ownership that you have of the company. But if you've had anyone in the first place, you had an hunch or you had this belief that they're going to help you move the business forward. So if you believe that they were smart enough for you to hire in the first place, why bring them into the company and then not listen to what they have to say or not how the company go the way they believe honestly and professionally that it should run. So you want to watch out for decisions where it flows directly from you and then just has every other person execute without buying from the smart people that you employed. So the second step is manager creates or assigns someone to create a written straw man. So the strawman is a hypothetical answer designed to inspire discussion. Shares this strawman, this document, with the team, invites team to give feedback, written and verbal, then facilitates group discussion, and together they will determine the final answer, or that is, they will determine the final decision. The advantage of this is that it creates more buying. Okay, you get people some minimal benefits. I mean, you get some minimal benefits from the collective wisdom of the team. Remember, somebody else, if you nominated somebody else to make that decision, then somebody else has already put in that process, has already kickstarted the process, and then you have every other person make contribution. This takes a little more time than if you are just calling the shots. Then there's a third process that takes even greater time. It says manager invites team to a meeting where a problem or dilemma is discussed and from scratch with no straw man, okay, the manager just says, okay, this is the problem, or maybe somebody tells the manager or the CEO, this is the problem we're facing, and then the CEO calls the team together. There's no straw man, there's no document, nothing. Everybody is just listening to the decision or to the issue for the first time, and then the manager and team then says, okay, we're going to gather around and discuss this. How should we solve this? And everybody sits around like a campfire and we'll talk about the issue. Then final decision is determined by consensus if possible. The advantage of this is that it creates the most buy-in, gets a lot of benefit from the collective wisdom of the team. Again, if you've hired somebody to work for you, you should listen to them. You might not um, um, do what they have advised, but the least you can do is not shut your team down because you hired them believing that they were smart in the first place. Okay, so you want to have as much buy-in as possible. Okay, so it says this third one is going to take the most time, okay, because it is the hardest to do. And because you're going to have the entire team talking about their opinions and sharing their perspectives, you have like a lot of information that you have to integrate or that you have to synergize. So it's a lot of data to play with, a lot of concerns to resolve. So which method should you use? It then says, yeah, this part is important. It says it depends on how significant the decision is. So we want to highlight this part. It depends on how significant the decision is. Okay, so for everyday low impact issues that come to you as the CEO or as the executive assistant to the CEO or chief of staff, sometimes the CEO would allow you to own some things and then you have to call the shots right away. It says for everyday low impact issues, like venue of a party. That's not important to the party. The party is for group spirit, so the venue may not be that important. So for a low hanging fruit like that, method one, which is the CEO or manager calls the shot, is most efficient. Like just say this is what we're doing and get it out of the way. Don't waste time because it's a low impact issue. For major core issues, for example, the company's 10-year vision. What are we going to do in 10 years? What kind of company do we want to be in 10 years? That should be flowing from the top very often because the CEO knows best what they want for the business. But as it comes from the top, you want to make sure you have method three in play. That is, everyone gives you input because again you've employed smart people to work for you in your company and you want this team to help you get somewhere in 10 years. So the least you can do is to not have a conversation with them as to what that 10 years should look like for the company, because some of them might be there, some of them might move on to start their own businesses or move on to other companies, but essentially you're not going to get to where you want to be in 10 years if you do not have people around you who are working towards the same thing. And if you want to do that, the least you can do is know what they think. And then it says for everything in between um, everyday issues and high level issues like 10-year visions and plans, you should have method two in play. So method two is somebody does the research. Like one CEO I used to work for, she will tell me, this is the idea I have. So you go do the research and create a document and send it to me, and then we'll talk about it. So that's like method two. So for everything in between, low hanging fruits, low impact things, and high impact things, use method two. So issues and proposed solutions. Team members will often want to bring up an issue and discuss it verbally. This is both inefficient, writing takes longer uh, than reading. And yes, this is true. Actually, writing takes longer than reading. But the good thing about writing is that once it is written, it will be clear, or maybe not once it is written, but once it is written, the chances of clarity increases, even though you might take a bit of time in the beginning to write that document. But the more clarity you have in your writing, the better the chances that you're going to make a very good decision. This is both inefficient and ineffective. That is talking about things verbally, because only the most forward people who are confident and outspoken will get to speak. But it says require that anyone who presents an issue at a team meeting do so in writing. So if you have an issue, you have a concern, write it down and then share with the team. The write-up should include both a detailed description of the issue as well as their proposed solution. They may say, I don't know the answer. It doesn't matter. They should take a guess, even if they have only 10% confidence that the answer will be the right one. They should write it down and then you can look over it or look through it together. Okay, and they should phrase the proposed solution in very bold directive terms, like do this, I recommend. Somebody has also said that I recommend can be an effective statement. That I think that video I watched, the person said, if you want to get people to do things that you believe they should be doing, just say I recommend, right? So in that write-up, you want to have do this, or I recommend we do this. This may seem aggressive, but creates a flag in the sand, which generates a much more productive discussion and a quicker decision time. One of the things that's interesting about this is I have met people who are so concerned about context over decisions. So if you, sorry, if you have the recommendations spelled out clearly, it's going to encourage people to focus on the decision that needs to be made. Let the debate be about the decision than about the context. Okay. Sometimes people just get so interested in, oh, how did we get here? Than how do we go out of this or get out of this, or how do we move forward and what should move forward look like. So it's better for the conversations to be about the best way forward than to be about anything else, like whose fault was it, or which document did we miss, or anything that involves talking about the past instead of the way forward and how you should move towards the goal that you have. So spelling the recommendation down in very clear, bold terms is very effective. I recommend, he says, that all issues slash proposed solutions be presented at the weekly meeting. Allow 5 minutes of discussion for each proposed solution. If in that time consensus is reached, great. The solution is turned into a next action with DRI. DRI simply means directly responsible individual and due date. If not, do not spend more time talking about the issue. Instead, turn to the rapid framework described below. So this is the rapid framework. It says Emily Chow or Choi, Emily Choi, VP of Corporate and Business Development at Coinbase. This was at the time of writing, so this person may not be at Coinbase anymore. Introduced me to a tool developed by Bain Consulting to make fully informed decisions with buying when first a team has become too large to easily get all the needed voices in one room, and consensus cannot be reached within 5 minutes of the discussion. Remember, he said here that I recommend issues and discussions be presented at the weekly meeting and allow 5 minutes for discussion of each proposed framework. So he says if 5 minutes is impossible, it's too short to make that decision, then you should enter into the rapid process. So what is the rapid process? So someone identifies in the rapid process, someone identifies an issue or decision that needs to be made. They write up one, the issue, two, the proposed solution, and three, the list of people needed to make and implement the decision. Okay, one, the issue, two, proposed solution, three, whose responsibility it is, that is, who is going to take action to help us achieve the proposed solution. So rapid means recommend, okay, recommend. The one who first proposed the issue and solution. To agree, or A, agree. Those people whose input must be incorporated in the decision should agree. And under agreement, this is usually legal. That is, those people whose input is incorporated in the decision, this is usually legal, who are ensuring that no one is breaking the law. Okay, so that is agreement. That's what you should be thinking about under agreement. Then for P, which is perform, those people who will have to enact any decision and therefore should be heard. Enact in this case means who will be executing the decision. You at least want to hear from them before you tell them to go and do this thing. So input, those people whose input is worth considering, and decide, the one who will make the decision. So rapid simply means one, recommend, that is the recommender of the decision, the first person. So in that meeting, you want to hear from the person who recommended the solution against the issue. Two, you want to have the agreement from the legal team to ensure you aren't going to break the law when you take on the solution, take on to effect the solution. And performance, you want to hear from the people who are going to execute. Okay, and input, you want to hear from maybe important stakeholders and decide. You, if the CEO is the one who has to make the decision, the CEO should also have a say in that meeting. So this takes me to like project management and product development. I think essentially this framework would work for both things. You have the recommender, you have the legal team, the people who should tell you whether your project is going to break the law or your product has any legal quandaries that it touches on. And then you have the performance team, maybe the tech team, who are responsible for designing or developing the product rather. And then you have inputs. You have inputs from, say, your customers, stakeholders. If it's project, you have input from customers. If it's project, you want to have input from stakeholders. And then decision, who is the person responsible for saying yes or no to the recommendation proposed by that first person who submitted the issue and then made the recommendation. So see section below for an explanation of this Amazon modification. So there's a different method used by Amazon here, okay? But it says that we're going to look at it later. The first thing is here, if a type 1 decision, irreversible, if it is a type 1 decision, I think it's Omozi who said this in a different way. He said you have two types of decisions, okay? You have the permanent decision, you have the temporary decision. So the temporary decision is a decision where it doesn't affect anything really. So because it's a temporary decision, you can always change it. Just go ahead, make the decision. If you made a wrong decision, you can come back and change it and it will affect nothing. Okay, so don't spend time, don't waste time on temporary decisions. But if it's a permanent decision or a decision that is going to take you a lot of time and investment to undo, then you want to spend time on that one. And the reason that clarification is really important is because most people spend time thinking about things that aren't important. Like if you make a mistake, you can always undo it. Okay, so don't spend time on that one. You want to spend time thinking about permanent decisions. So I think that's a similar thing he's saying here. Okay, if a type 1 decision, that is, it's an irreversible decision, let the CEO make it. If it is a type 2 decision, it's a reversible decision, let somebody else make it. Because you can't always go to the CEO and say, oh, boss, for virtual assistant, I like to own things and I would prefer going to my CEO if it's a major decision involved, because again, it's not my company, even though I've been taxed with owning things. So if it's a permanent decision or an irreversible decision, a decision that's going to cost the company money and time and energy, yeah, go to the decision and have the go to the CEO and have the CEO make that decision. But if it's a reversible decision, something that is not going to cost the company money that the company should be worried about, somebody else can make that decision. So you don't bog down the CEO with relevant things or with little things. Okay, so another point he makes here is that if it's somebody recommending the issue, a section on the document for each person above to write their comments. So in that document, you're going to create this rapid sections. Okay. So number two, the R then reaches out to all the A's, P's, and is to solicit their input. Once the input is received, the document is ready to be reviewed by the D. Okay, so once you have given this document space for people to make their comments, so pass it through. That's the person who makes the recommendation. If it's me, as the chief of staff or executive assistant, for example, creates that document, then I want to pass it to the aid, the legal team, the performance team or development team or the executive team, and then stakeholders or customers or yeah. So you want to use like sample customers or get customer feedback, and then you pass it to the D. Only after everyone else has taken a look should you send it to the CEO or the manager who's responsible for that decision. It says the recommender schedules a decision meeting and invites the D, person making the decision, the A's, the legal team or the person who is responsible for compliance, the I's, that is stakeholders, and the P's, the execution team. So at that decision making, if the issue is urgent, the R schedules this decision meeting as soon as it needs to be. If the decision is non-urgent, the R can use the next team meeting as the decision meeting. And then it says here, at the decision meeting, the D reads through the document. If she has any questions, she asks them. But it's usually better for the D, that is the person responsible for the decision, read the document beforehand. And then when they come into the document, just says, okay, this is what we have, or this is what I have on my desk, and um, this is the decision we're going to make. If our questions, oh, she asks questions. If our questions can be fully answered in 5 minutes, she decides. If they cannot be answered in 5 minutes, she asks for another round of written responses on the document to answer a question. At the next team meeting, she reviews these responses and decides. So number five, once the D, that is the person responsible for the decision, decides, she writes up the decision or asks the recommender, the person responsible who has recommended that decision, along with all the next actions that each with DRI, directly responsible individuals, and due date, give the next action items and itemize the due dates. And then this decision maker will publish decision to the company. This is usually something like a memo, but usually because we're in a digital space now, we just have an email that's sent to everyone within the company. Announcing the decision that's been made. So it says once a company starts this process, it is helpful to both track all the rapids that are in the process as well as collect feedback on how to improve the process. So improvement for because this must be a major decision anyway. If you're having this document, this rapid strategy in play. Remember, we already talked about this. That if it's a document that if it's an issue that's not going to cost the company money or important resources, then you don't need the rapid framework. But if it's going to cost the company important resources, that's when you use the rapid framework. Okay. So, and you can always find ways to improve the rapid framework. I think that is where you have the idea of retrospectives. So um, once you have gone through this rapid framework the first time for a decision that's going to cost the company its resources, then you want to have something like a retrospective once the company starts so that you can collect, or maybe once you have completed that project or you've closed out on that action, so that you can look through how you could have improved the process. So it says here, create a sheet to track each rapid that has been created with a link to the rapid document, okay, who the R and D are, when the decision meeting will take, and or has taken place, that is, has been held. Then finally, when all of the next action items are completed. So what do you need? You need here, it says a sheet. Then it says create a doc for feedback. Okay, so these are two important mechanisms for each rapid. So you need, the first one is a spreadsheet that collates everything involved up to that point. Then the second is a feedback document. So this feedback document is where you have all the feedback, and there should ideally be an a link to the original document, that is the rapid document. So each decision meeting asks the participants to write in their feedback until the process is working. So you now have type 1 and type 2 decisions further explained, and this is where we're going to close out in this chapter of the video. It says, in his iconic 2015 shareholder letter, Amazon's Jeff Bezos introduced us to lightweight distributed decision making. He wrote, some decisions are consequential and irreversible, or nearly irreversible. They are one-way doors, and these decisions must be made methodically, carefully, slowly, and with great deliberation and consultation. If you walk through and don't like what you see on the other side, you can't get back to where you went before. We can call these type 1 decisions, but most decisions aren't like that. They are changeable, reversible. They are two-way doors. If you've made a suboptimal type 2 decision, you don't have to live with the consequences for that long. You can reopen the door and go back through. Type 2 decisions can and should be made quickly by high judgment individuals or small groups. As organizations get larger, there seems to be a tendency to use the heavyweight type 1 decision-making process on most decisions, including many type 2 decisions. The end result is slowness, unthoughtful risk aversion, failure to experiment sufficiently, and consequently diminished invention. One will have to figure out how to fight that tendency. So what Jeff Bezos said then was, each time a decision needs to be made, rate it. Is it going to be type 1 or type 2? If it's a type 2 decision, allow one of your reports to the decision maker in the rapid process to handle it. The decision will be made faster. Your report will get the chance to exercise their decision making muscle, and you will have the chance to gain confidence in your report's ability to make decisions well. And from one of the things that I've learned the most about how to be an exceptional executive assistant or chief of staff is to manage the CEO's calendar and work in such a way that only two things, or mostly two things, high level client relations and strategic decisions, um, fall on the lap of the CEO. Every other thing should or can or could, it depends on who you're working with, be managed by the chief of staff or the executive assistant or executive virtual assistant. The point is so that the CEO, it's even optimal for the CEO, because the CEO only exerts their energy on high level things, that is one way doors, things that are um, almost permanent or irreversible, and the other team can take their weight dealing with things that aren't so important, or the virtual assistant can deal with things that are mostly operational or administrative or low-level client relations. So yes, we close for chapter 11, and when we return in chapter 12 in the next video, we're going to look at the loudest voice in the room. That is, how do you deal with people who are more confident than others within the team? So see you in the next video. God bless.